Hi, this is going to be an in-depth look at the graphics in Throw Rock. This will probably be the shortest of the postmortem episodes that I'm doing because I have the least to say about graphics, I think. They are honestly kind of the simplest and maybe most, not necessarily unfinished, but like the part of the game I probably ultimately put the least effort into. I just allocated my time elsewhere. Level design was more important, audio was more fun, I guess. Anyway, but I came up with a reasonably functional set of graphics here, and let's take a look at them. So as I said in the overview, I chose a palette which just happens to be built into my tile editor here. So yeah, this tile editor that I've been working on for a while does all of my graphic design stuff. This is an application that I built from scratch, which is a general purpose image editor, a tile editor, and an editor for tile maps where I can actually lay down the tiles that I draw in on this screen. So yeah, I wanted to be sure to use this tool. Like, one of the purposes of Throw Rock was to be a target for this tool, so I could give it a real use case and see how it did, see where its shortcomings were, see what I needed to do with it. And it held up pretty well. I did collect kind of a page of to-dos while I was in the middle of building the game. I've addressed most of those now, done some work in this application. I used to do devlogs for this tool itself. I haven't done one in a while. They're just kind of happening incidentally as part of this. But anyway, so Throw Rock, graphics. Right, palette happened to be built into Tile Editor. This is the same palette that Explorer 2GS uses. Just the one that I happened to have on hand. 16 colors, not a lot. Just enough to express basic shapes and stuff with some color. And yeah, I thought about just like, I can just choose any arbitrary color here if I want to. I thought about just ignoring the palette, but I thought it'd be an interesting constraint to try and actually stick with it. So I did. It was an interesting constraint. I do think the graphics in the game would be better if I had just ignored the palette or taken the time to make up a new one with a few more colors and a few better shades. But anyway, this simplified things. Just if these are my only choices, then I can only spend so much time on color choices. Again, just I didn't want to spend too much time on this. 9x9 was just arbitrarily the tile size that I chose up front. I decided up front, sure, let's do 9x9, just kind of stuck with it. It felt small enough to be easily manageable, large enough that I could get some details in. This rock looks recognizably like a rock, I'd say, etc. This torch looks, you can tell it's a torch. See, 9x9 is the base size, but I can go outside that because of the way my editor system here works. I can make the thing larger, and it just is larger, and just works that way. Anyway, yeah, so these tiles down here, in reading order, are in the order that I drew them. So I laid down a grass tile, a brick tile, a water tile, and a player. And I don't know if I had even drawn the rock on the first day, but yeah, I just got like these four things rendering in that screenshot I showed once. It's probably here. Yeah, this little screenshot. So that was the first thing that ever showed in the game. I want to kind of show some of the evolution of the graphics. I guess I didn't go quite back far enough in the tile set, but you can see the player didn't originally have that orange outline around the outside. That was definitely a good improvement. And yeah, a few other things changed over time. This is not the newest graphics set, but close enough. Basically shows everything in its new state. So, right. Grass tile, dark green with a few light green dots. Sure, simple enough. Brick tile, just a brick pattern in gray. I can press that key and see tiles at the edges. This is very handy for tile editing, like if I need to line up, lines that go all the way across a thing. This is a very good mode for that. I'm glad I implemented it. Anyway, but yeah, if I'm just looking at an individual tile, it's kind of distracting to have it around the edges. But yeah, like you can see the brick pattern with that. 9x9 with the number of bricks I chose doesn't line up exactly. This is 3 tall, this is 4 tall, but it's fine. One of the regrets I have, a place where I wish I had spent a bit more time on the graphics, is that I'm kind of really annoyed that this brick here is flat. It doesn't extend up above its thing, but then this door does. So you get the 3D effect on some things. If I come over to the tile editor screen here. So yeah, this protrudes up above, but you know, you could just interpret this as like some sort of stone path you could walk on because it doesn't stick up. I tried a yeah, same for the cracked one. I tried a I did make an attempt at drawing a 3D brick tile, but it just never looked right. Let's see, what did I do? You know, I extended this upward. I probably moved this to the top and then tried to put, see, like this is where I kind of ran into an issue. I didn't know how to transition between like the raised parts and the unraised parts. Because like if it's all made of brick, then what? This just doesn't look like anything. Oh, what am I doing? I'm getting confused because my custom cursors don't work on Windows and something. Anyway, yeah, so like if I just draw that out, oops, something like that. Yeah, that doesn't look like anything. It just adds some black lines, and so I'd need some kind of separation. Like these would have to be different colors than the top, or the top would have to be a different texture, and I don't know. I got about that far with this and just couldn't solve that problem in the time that I had to solve it, so I just kind of gave up and left the brick texture as flat. So that's one of my regrets alongside the palette. Anyway, yeah, with a little bit more time, I would have liked to have raised that up. Another thing I would have liked to do is I have this auto tile system in here. So like right here, all these brick tiles are the same. It's just a square of gray. But I do have a partially finished system in here. Let's make a very basic, just do a couple of copies of this. I'm gonna do right side, copy this, and do left side, copy this, and do bottom side, copy this, and do top side. Sure, let's do all the variations just for fun. Isolated, left and right, just so you can see what the border is. This wouldn't have taken too long if I'd just done it to this basic extent, and probably would have looked pretty good. I'm going to actually be seeing this for the first time right now. And that'll be fun. So yeah, auto tile system is basically like I can, you can probably sort of tell what I'm doing here. Just put borders where the edge of a tile, like where a neighbor is not also this tile. Set it up to, let's see, is that all the variations? Set it up to be, oh no, I don't have the dead ends. So copy this. So top dead end, bottom dead end. Not doing these in any particular order, and it doesn't really matter. That'll be fine. Left dead end, and right dead end. All of these variants probably are not represented in the intro level. But anyway, so surrounded is just that tile as it is. So isolated is this one. Left dead end is this one. Top bottom edge is that. So yeah, I just assign each one of these to the variation that is at that edge in the representation over here. Bottom edge, or sorry, bottom dead end. Left right edge, where are you? You. Okay, top left corner. It's kind of hard to tell with some of these. Top left corner is that. Top right corner, bottom left corner, bottom right corner. So yeah, all this is to say, like, I had this system. It existed, but I thought it was going to be insufficient for the game as I had it. Okay, so I've assigned all of these to this tile. So every time this tile shows up in those positions, it'll have that border around it. Now it's maybe a little bit weird at the edges here. I have a thing I can do about that. There's actually a toggle for this. I keep pressing 1 by accident. Auto tile at map edge. So if I check that box and go back here, yeah, so now this extends off the edge as though it was there was more brick here. So I can decide whether it extends beyond the map edge that way or not. But yeah, okay, so like putting a black border around there definitely highlights where the walls are. This is for neighbor auto tiling, so right here in this spot, you can see that missing pixel. I want to choose a different tool that doesn't put a tile over top of where I'm pointing. But I do want it to do the little, okay, let's do that tool, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, so 8 neighbor auto tiling would require a lot more variations, but I could add a black pixel there for, this is brick, this is brick, this is brick, this is brick, but this is not, etc. Yeah, auto tiling, surprisingly complicated sort of thing. See, now that looks really bad around the stairway here, though. The black merging with the other black. That's no good. I'd probably use a different color than black. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so this was something that was going to end. Yeah, like I would want this to merge together with the cracked wall, and I only have the system ready at this point to just say, like, whether it is exactly this tile ID or not. I don't have a facility for specifying that, like, these two should have a special transition tile between them. I can just toggle that and see how it would look without. Anyway, yeah, so I think, like, this is a good system. This would add a lot of sort of, like, visual punch and, a real good contrast to things that are going on. But it just, the system wasn't quite ready for it. So that is a part of this tile editor that was not prepared for what I wanted in Throw Rock. So I just did it with no auto tiling, and it was fine. Anyway, yeah, so that system is good. It will be good when it's all the way done, but it's not all the way done yet. Anyway, so let's revert this file just so we don't see those variations being distracting. Water. I made this like all sparkly. So, typically when pixel art water looks something like this. You have a couple of lines representing sort of waves. Maybe some of them will look like this, maybe, if you want. And that's what the water would look like. So that's what it would look like with that kind of water. That's a very different flavor from what I ended up with. Anyway, so I remembered when I played a game called The Odyssey. It had this really sparkly water tile that I liked a lot. So I wanted these like bright white light reflections here. And I think I like how it turned out. This is very clear, sparkling water. Anyway, player inspiration for this was just the Explorer editor player start location. Looked pretty much exactly like this. I think it actually didn't have the, well, yeah, it looked more like this variation. It didn't have the orange border around it. It was just a pink circle. So yeah, same color, same shape, but I added a border, and that works fine. Once you know what you look like, then you can recognize where the player is perfectly easily. It would have been nice to have another player sprite, but the thing is, like, if I made this something non-abstract, it would need to have different facings, maybe different animations for walking, for doing stuff. It just gets a whole lot more complicated if I have something other than an abstract shape as the player. Fun fact about the game code, the player's facing is in the data model. Like, player at all times knows which way it is facing. So, if I step here and input left and bump the wall, I'm then facing left. It's just that it doesn't affect any mechanic and doesn't affect any visual, so you would never know. But it is there. The data exists. Anyway, yeah, so rock. Just wanted something distinctive. It's kind of the main feature of the game. Just kind of drew this little bean shape. Kind of another nod to the bean and nothingness inspiration of this game. Looks a little bit beany. And yeah, just drew that rock once. It stayed exactly the same. Pressure plates. These went through a few revisions. We'll look at those in more detail. What the final version just ended up being flat and with like a color change. So instead of yellow and orange, when it's pressed, it goes to brown and orange, or sorry, yellow and orange, it changes to orange and brown in that order. Right. Here. Okay, so I want something I can point with and get this. So this little rollover cursor, just like in Throw Rock, is fairly new to Tile Editor, and I still haven't worked out all the nuances of it. Don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah, so that's current pressure plate. This door, so door down, door up, couple of things to note about this. So first is the depth. I talked about that. In the code, in order for depth, so depth actually works a little differently here in Tile Editor than it does in the game. If I were to open... where would I see this? I'm going to open some other levels, so if you're somehow watching this episode of the devlog without having watched the level showcase, then level spoilers start here. Let's open some levels and see if I can find the thing I'm looking for. It's not here. I would expect it to be, but it's not. That's Frozen Lake. Maybe I won't see it, but anyway, the thing is, this has no depth to it at all. Nothing protrudes in Ice Keep. Interrupt, here we go. I can see it clearly here. So yeah, just because of the layering, the rock draws on top of the block that would be in front of it. So in the game, I go row by row, and then I have a priority system for when each tile draws. It's kind of complicated. I have the code up here. So yeah, a little bit of a preview for the programming episode I'll do later. This is basically the entire, like all of the graphics are in this function right here. Let's go through this real quick. So level complete animation, that's not drawing anything, that's just state management. Getting the bounds of the field that's going to be drawn. Here's the tile map. Okay, right, so the player... Let me launch the game and show something real quick. We'll get back to going through the tiles in a moment, but I just want to show a thing. So, if you look closely, when I move, there's a little bit of move interpolation on the player. It doesn't just, like, instantly warp to the next position. It's 3 frames long. Interpolation duration, 3 divided by 60. Okay, no, it's not 3 frames long. It's 3/60ths of a second. Yeah, so if you're running this on a display that runs at a different refresh rate than 60, like if you're running it at an 120 hertz display, then you'll get 6 frames of interpolation, I think? I haven't tested that, but I think it probably would work that way. This display I'm running on now can do 144 hertz. I should try the game in 144 hertz mode and see if it looks good. I'll do that after this, and report back, maybe. Or not. It'll probably just work. Anyway, yeah, and same for the rocks. So rocks have a little bit of animation as they move to their where they're going. Those are the only 2 things that do that. I'm very glad I was able to get those 2 things in the game because I think it adds a lot. That was a late addition, but I prioritized it a lot higher than some things that I could have not prioritized. Let's see, if I would just set this to 0. I don't know if that's gonna cause any problems. Let's see what happens here. I'll dare to recompile with that change and see if this works. Division by 0, yeah, okay, fair enough. What if I set this to 1? And see what it looks like with 1. 1 might end up being the same as 0. Because yeah, it'll be at 0 one frame, then at 1 the next frame, and then that's the same thing as just not having any interpolation, I think. Okay, so that compiled. Whoa, no, my mistake. I was thinking of it wrong. I'm changing the duration. So now it's 1 second long on the interpolation. I'm drawing this to a pixel, to a frame buffer, right, frame buffer object at the resolution of, I guess for this level size it would be, okay, so that's 9 by 9 tile size, 23 by 15 tile map size, so that comes out to, I don't know, 23 times 9 by 15 times 9, whatever that number is. Anyway, that's the game's base resolution, so that's why this looks all kind of herky-jerky as it interpolates to that. Okay, yeah, and this is revealing how the interpolation actually works. So if I input 2 moves before the interpolation has finished, which at the normal speed wouldn't be possible, it just interpolates from what the previous move was. So it basically warps to the location it would be interpolating from. Anyway, you can see what's happening. Yeah, it makes sense, I think. Anyway, so let's do the opposite. Let's set this to... Okay, so if the duration is 1... Right, what I actually wanted to do was to set this to 1 divided by 60. Because that's the duration, not the frame count. All durations in my code are always in seconds, by the way, in case you're ever curious. That is how I measure. Right, that's tile editor. Whoa, you're compiling a lot of stuff. Am I making release builds? I am making release builds right now. Okay, compiling a little more than it needed to. That's fine. Yeah, okay, so this is... there might be one frame of interpolation there. Yeah, there is still one frame. Anyway, yeah, so this isn't quite simulating what it would be like with no interpolation. I can't so easily do that with just one constant change, so just don't worry about it. All right, so let's recompile this while we go through the other stuff. Elevation, right, that's a thing. So when the player is on a door, I have special handling for moving them upward. So just to refresh what that looks like, if I go to the weight level, this is automatically demonstrated here. So up, down, and the interpolation knows what to do with it, etc. Rocks that are on top of plates will also be up. There, I can see that. Ooh, that doesn't look great. Yeah, I don't like the way that looks at all. Guess this doesn't come up very much in the game, but ugh, that's kind of gross. Alright, well, that's something I would change if I spent more time on it. Right, yeah, sorry, we're going through code now. Anyway, so, going back off of several tangents. Interpolation happens. There's a bunch of handling for elevation and interpolation here, just determining where the player would be drawn. Right, and there's this checkerboard feature, which looks like this. All that does is just darken every other grass and water tile. It's pretty simple. Just by changing the vertex color. So I guess that's another place where I violate the color palette, technically. Like the tile data is does have those 16 colors, but that gives more colors by darkening them slightly. That's fine. Anyway, yeah, so checkerboard. Okay, and what's all this? Tile ID equals goal tile ID. Right, this is the special handling for the one animation that I was able to actually get in there, which is... So I drew these animation tiles for the player going downstairs long before I was sure I would be able to actually... This is larger than it needs to be. This should be like that. I'm wasting an entire row of pixels. Oh no, 9 pixels wasted. How could I? Yeah, so just wanted to animate this player sprite going down the stairs. And yeah, I drew these long before I was sure I would find time to put it into the game. Again, like the player and rock position interpolation, I think it adds a lot to have it in here. Yeah, so this is just like player superimposed over stair sprite, getting overlapped by the right side of the stairs, moving, you know, down and right one, down and right one, down and right one. You know, it happens so fast you don't even really notice. Well, I mean, you notice the animation happens, but don't really notice the details of it. So I think it's pretty effective. Yeah, so I had a whole list of things that I wished to be able to animate in here. What all is on my list? So the stairs animation and the interpolation, if you count that, are the only things that ended up in there. But yeah, on the cutting room floor, there was going to be one for toggling elemental tokens, one for, you know, doors going up and down, just have this block like slide up and down. Oh right, I was talking about this. I'll get back to it eventually. I guess I do have more to say about the graphics than I thought. All right. There's going to be one for rocks changing element, you know, going between fire, ice, wind, neutral. For a rock falling to the ground, I guess again, just interpolating from like up to down. It just does it instantly in the final version. Rock landing on a rock and destroying each other, or one of them getting destroyed. Splashing in the water, that's when I really wish I had, like, rock splashing in the water would have added a lot. Like, that would be my second, like, my top priority of the ones I didn't get to. A splash effect would be great. But then, you know, there's stuff like fire rock melts, what do I actually call this? Ice barrier, that's its official name. I didn't even know it, but I typed it here. There's the string. It's in the game data somewhere. And, you know, Fire Rock can also destroy that kind of ice floor. That's called Ice Floor. Yep. Ice Rock freezes water and turns it into that, or freezes grass and turns it into this. And Trapdoors Falling, both types. That was my list of animations I wanted to get in, but only one of them ever happened. Anyway, so those are the animations I wished I had, but the only one I had was the goal. Yeah, so there's some code for determining just like, if this is a goal tile that I'm drawing, instead of your tile ID of goal, which is 27, that's its numeric ID, draw whatever I calculated here during the animation. Exit animation 1 plus amount of time that's elapsed divided by duration times number of frames that exist in the... funny I didn't make a constant for that. I just knew it was 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. Anyway, so yeah, just if it's a goal, then override what you're drawing with what's calculated up there. And if you're checkerboarding, whether it's grass or water, and you know it's on a tile that should be, by this mathematical function, darkened, then the color looks like 20% darker than it would otherwise be. That was the number I came up with. Everything darker looked too dark, everything lighter looked too light. So 20% was the number. Then yeah, you just draw the tile. Right, so again, there's this priority system. So it goes row by row. You know, it draws this entire row and all the entities on it before it draws anything in this row and all the entities on it. And there are multiple layers going on here, sort of, because, you know, a grass tile can coexist with a rock on the ground, can coexist with a rock in flight, can technically coexist with a player on top of it, even though that could never happen because player can't get in front of rocks. But, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, tile is drawn first. Entities are drawn next. Entities are rocks on the ground, rocks in flight, player... I think that's all. Scrolls. I think that's all. Those 4 things. So entities are always on top of the tile on the ground. And then entities have a priority in between them. This part of the code's a little messy. Priority is less than 2. But then the priority is greater or equal to 2. Then it gets drawn later after the player. Yeah, so there's basically a priority that determines, does the entity go under the player like a rock on the ground, or on top, or a scroll, or on top of the player like a rock in flight? Because you do see that a little bit during the interpolation of the initial throw. So yeah, you see it here too. Well, no, it's in a different row. Yeah, you don't really see it there, but during the interpolation you do. It doesn't like come out from under that player. It's on top. That's why that matters. Right, and here's some slightly messy last-minute code for interpolating the rock position. Yeah, anyway, don't need to go over this in detail. That's what it does. You can see the general shape of it. Right, okay, so if the player is still in the level and hasn't finished it yet, either of the 2 ways it's possible to finish, then draw the player sprite. Otherwise, you're drawing just the goal tile, but replaced by one of these. Like the player sprite itself just stops getting drawn as soon as the level is finished. Well, not the secret way. Huh. How do I do that? Wait. Right, sorry. If the level is not complete, or it is complete and it was exited secretly. Yeah, so the other way you keep drawing the player. Anyway. It's complicated. Enough for me to be confused by my own code. That's not hard. Oh, wait, what? Right, yeah, because technically, if you're exiting the south edge of the level, then the player's in this row, and my loop that goes over every tile row stops here and never considers things on this row. So I have special handling here to draw the player whose position is technically below the entire thing. Wait, but why is that only south? Why isn't that also north? Why isn't that also east and west? Because that's not a column that's considered. Huh. I'm sure there's a reason. In the fever of game jam coding, I don't remember what it was. Anyway, throw previews, right? Yeah, there's that whole thing. Where are you at? So yeah, throw preview. I never actually lay this down in the level editor, but it looks like... Actually, it doesn't quite look like this. It looks like this with some transparency. So yeah, I have the horizontal, the vertical, and the arrows at either end, etc. So those are handled separately here. It just goes through all the rocks that are in flight and calls a function that draws the preview. Has the smarts to know, how far the rock is traveling, how to draw the thing, what the priority order is, etc. Also throw preview for the player, same deal. And then this is newish code for, well, some of it is. For the, no, a lot of this is old. Yeah, so this is all the complications for rolling over pressure plates and doors and, yeah, so if you roll over as one of these, it goes through all the properties of that tile specified in those JSON files that I showed a couple of times and just draws a colored square at each target. And then separately, just in this one line, this is where the cursor highlight is drawn. I'm actually on a slightly old version of the tile set here that doesn't include the highlight cursor, but it is its own tile. After I finish going through all these, whenever that manages to happen, I'm going to show the history of the graphics and how they evolved. They didn't change much, but a few little things changed that I think are worth calling out. Anyway, yeah, and then there's the scroll text, the pop-up of this slightly transparent box with the font in it. Again, font was not drawn for the game jam. That was something I had around just in Foresight Fight. Small little 5-point font, 7-point, something like that, somewhere around there, that just happened to work. It's not very pretty, but it was good enough at the time. Anyway, yeah, this is just box drawing and text rendering. What is all this? Very verbose box drawing. Anyway, yeah, so just draws a... so 4 edges and then white filling for the center and then the text itself. And that's the entire draw function. That's all pretty much all the drawing code, other than, supporting stuff, backend renderer stuff. That's all the game-specific renderer code. Anyway, so back to this. I had gotten as far as these two. Right. So you can see a little bit of grass at the edge of these. This is another thing that, like, auto-tiling could have taken care of if I had done it. I would have loved to have had variants for these that exist on... let's see, does Frozen Lake have any of these? Sort of. It has the colored variation, which is... whoa. I found an error. Look at these 2 pixels. Those are 1 too high. Aren't they? Why is this... How that be as it is? No, no, no. Those are not part of the block tile. Those are part of the fire token. Yeah, because the fire token itself has some grass pixels around it. Okay, that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, so a lot of stuff has grass color around it. And that does kind of clash occasionally. Yeah, here you can see clearly the grass around the torch, the little pixels of grass around the fire token. These used to be worse when these tokens were a different shape. I specifically shaped them this way to minimize the number of grass-colored pixels in there. But yeah, the Switch has grass around it. Other ways I could have done that would be just to exclude these pixels, make them transparent, and make those like a separate layer, and put an ice tile under that. That wasn't the route I ended up going, though. Anyway, yeah, so auto-tiling, if it saw ice around these, could, like, acknowledge that, and it might get complicated if I had, like, ice on one side and grass on the other. It'd have to have, like, splits. I don't know. That required too much thought to get done in a week. So, just grass it is. Sometimes grass shows up where I wouldn't want it to, and I just have to be okay with that. One thing I didn't like, this was a last-minute change, the dithering here on this downed, held down door state. There aren't any in this level. There's probably some in the intro. Yeah, so here. This is the only thing in the entire graphics that involves any dithering, and it looks kind of weird and out of place, but I needed a color in between this dark gray and this light gray, and I didn't want to violate the palette there. I should have just violated the palette. That would have been a much better choice, but that's not what I did. Because, yeah, I had this all the way dark gray, and let's see, there was a reason it didn't look good, because it looked too much like when a player is up on top of a pillar, it was too hard to tell the difference between, you know, player's big pink body overlapping this, just seeing, like, this section down here, and seeing the version of this that looked like that on the bottom. Because, yeah, like if you just, you know, cover the portion of the screen from here on up, there's no visible change there. And I guess it would make more sense that it should really be... What tool am I on? I don't have cursors on Windows. There we go. That it would be like that. But that just looked all kinds of wrong. Did it? Why does that look wrong? That looks fine. I don't know. That would have been a fine choice now that I look at it. But anyway, dithering was my solution that I ended up going with. Yeah, so Rock and Flight. The other palette violation, I'm finding actually a lot of those, is this alpha channel here. Oh, I haven't actually shown this in my tile editor. This is super cool. So I can just invoke this channel editor here. This is the red channel, this is the green channel, this is the blue channel. They're all the same because those are gray colors. Here's the alpha channel. And yeah, so anything that's not pure white here will be partially transparent. So yeah, the shadow of the rock is just like that. Yeah, I should do another devlog in this tile editor. This thing is super cool. I like the channel editor. It makes me happy. Anyway, yeah, so got an alpha channel on the rock shadow. Okay, yeah, so fire token, active, inactive. This went through a couple of iterations. I'll show an older one right now. How about that? So I want, which one is it? This one? Yeah, here we go. So here's how the tokens looked before. They had a black border when active, were player shaped, and I think the icons in the center were always the same. But yeah, when deactivated it had the gray border and a lot more grass pixels around here. So that would have looked like in a level, let's see, Island Chain has a bunch of those. Island Chain, where are you? Yeah, so that would look like that when inactive. Do I have any with like mixed active and inactive? I mean, I know Ice Keep has active and inactive ice tokens, sure. You can sort of see it there. But yeah, then those changed to this form, which I think is a whole lot better. Yeah, so more, less circular, more closer to square, and white border when active, no border when inactive. Yeah, I think this was a very good change. I'm glad I made this last minute tweak to the graphics. And the icon stands out way better. Like the edge of the circle, don't touch this tornado, which nobody parsed as a tornado. It's hard to draw wind. Imagine that. This was just this green tornado thing was about the best I could do in the time I had. Anyway, yeah, so, and then there are the trapdoors. So trapdoor over pit, trapdoor over water. This one changed slightly. Let's go to the intro level. So yeah, here's what it looks like now. Brown here and this sort of lighter, sort of more lavender blue in the center. Previously it had been blue on the outside, this actual lavender color on the inside. This had the problem that it's the same dark blue as the surrounding water, and just doesn't parse quite the same as, like, it doesn't quite separate itself well enough from the water as an object. Like, it looks fine when there's no water around it, but it's a trapdoor over water. There's going to be water around it. So that was a little palette change at the last minute there. Oh, this is still called Pit. Okay, even though it changed to space. So let's go to Ice Keep. I could also do this in Sanctum or Trapdoor, but Ice Keep will do. So Ice Keep looks like this now. Has the space background, Back before that was space, it looked like this, which is a little different. Doesn't really parse as anything in particular, but yeah, this is supposed to be like, you know, drawed analogy, look like a pit. I mean, drawed pits are a lot more complicated than just this. But yeah, this is just supposed to look like some kind of dark way in the background vertical cliff face or something. It didn't really look like that. So I'm glad I changed it to space. Oops. Oops. Ooh, that was the wrong button. I think that's all the changes I needed to cover here. The rest of those looked like they didn't really change. Let's go all the way back. This was before some of those things were drawn. Oh yeah, the pressure plates. Pressure plates did change a little bit. This is what they looked like when they... Whoa. Oh, cracked walls didn't exist here, so those aren't drawing. That's pretty good. Yeah, there was a time when cracked walls didn't exist. They were a surprisingly late addition. Yeah, the reason I changed this was because my my bricks are not 3D, so this kind of protrudes up over them. The pressure plate is higher than the wall that's next to it, but the wall stops you and the pressure plate doesn't, so that's why that looked super wrong to me. And then... At some point I... Wait, why did that... Okay, here we go. At some point I changed it from convex to concave. This just looked all kinds of wrong to me. Like this part is the same as the final, but this... Oh yeah, here's the dark dark open door. Didn't like this at all, so I changed it to the other thing. Anyway, yeah, I think that was all the graphical changes. Right, yeah, fire rock and flight, ice rock and flight, wind rock and flight. It's pretty simple, just all recolors of the neutral rock and flight. Which I guess would be earth element, but I think of it as neutral element. I thought of having an earth rock that would do something like be heavier and, I don't know, fly less far or something. I didn't have any ideas for an earth element there, so we just ended up with the 3. Yeah, ice barrier. This was hastily drawn and never tweaked. Looks okay, but now that I look at it more closely, it kind of doesn't. You can tell what it is. You can tell what it does. It's good enough. Switches. Switch blue, switch red. Not much to say about this. They're just switches, you know. Kind of went with like a Link to the Past switch metaphor. I actually went and checked that game real quick to see what the behavior was in terms of... Interrupt's not the one I wanted. Well, it demonstrates fine. Fenced is the one I wanted. In terms of like, when the switch is blue, are the blue blocks down or up? In A Link to the Past, they are down. So I matched that behavior just in case, you know, Zelda players have something familiar to key into, I guess. Just because I felt like that made sense. And, you know, it's totally arbitrary, so why not arbitrarily choose the one that'll be familiar to some people? Ice floor, yeah, it's an ice floor. Not much to say about it. Goal, okay, another kind of Zelda-looking thing from a different Zelda game. You know, this is what stairways are drawn like in tile sets. It's a stairway, you know. Recolor of gate up, etc., and the up and down. Okay, yeah, so these didn't get the dithering. These maintained... Oh, I didn't give these the same treatment, so they have the problem of the down version. You know, if you cover your screen from here on up, you don't really see anything changing when they go up or down. Oh, how did I not notice that? Like, if it was a problem for these... I just didn't notice that the same problem applied to those. Whoa, okay. I'm learning that just now. And then, yeah, so these are all shown in the order they were drawn. So at some point I added a variation of the player for rock being carried. That was not in the game originally, and it was definitely a very important addition. Still want one for standing on rock, and I guess standing on rock while carrying a rock also needs it. How would it look if I made standing on rock while carrying rock look like that? That looks terrible. I hate it. Wow. Yeah, that's no good either. Okay, nope, don't like that at all. Single gray pixel in the center is absolutely not the way to go, and I don't think another border around here would be. That looks more like more emphasized than carrying rock. I'm thinking more like a little pop-up that comes up over the player's head. Like, I mean, imagine it was like a little thought balloon with the control for pick up rock on it. That's what what I see in my head when I picture a graphic for standing on rock. But at this resolution, I couldn't fit that. It would have to look different depending on what your control binding was. I guess it could be a little tiny balloon with a tiny rock in it. I don't know. I don't think that would parse very well. So again, another problem I thought about but didn't come up with a solution in time to do it for the jam. So there it stands, undone. Maybe someday. Scroll overlaps slightly outside its bounds because I thought that looked better. Other than that, it's a scroll. You know, it's, let's be honest, it's a drawed scroll, pretty much. Basically works the same way, only it shows its text inline instead of in a little panel over on the left. And yeah, then there's just throw preview stuff. Nothing much to say about that. Torches. Another grass-filled tile. For the grass tiles, I don't include the lighter green parts, just to make sure that I get good contrast with the actual element that's in there. Torch, idle, lit would be another good candidate for animation. Torch being lit, torch being extinguished. Okay, those didn't make it into my list, but those would totally be animated if I had done animations. Yeah, and then stairway animation that we looked at already, and then all the way at the end is the cracked wall, which is just, you know, this thing copied with a crack hastily scribbled over it. Did I tile this carefully? I think I did. I did it in this mode and made sure these cracks met up at places that made sense. Not that you see a whole lot of those adjacent to each other. I think maybe the only place it happens is in swimming pool. It might be that the only place it happens is in swimming pool, because where else would that occur? Chill doesn't have any, I think. Fenced has just one. Yeah, this was a tile that I had a lot of trouble using. Swimming pool was built specifically because I said, hey, I have this tile. I want to see if it has puzzle potential all on its own. Make a puzzle all about this thing. And it turned out that it did. So I was happy about that. All right, yeah, so couple of other little technical details about this. Let's see, how do I even express these things? It's complicated. So in terms of the renderer that's behind this is fairly advanced and robust. It has 3D graphics capabilities that aren't being used here. Has shaders. The one shader that's relevant here... sorry, I'm kind of doing two things at once. Checking my notes if there's stuff that I missed here. Yeah, it's fine. I wanted to do some fancy shader magic on level transition. Just have, like, by surprise, you go down the stairs and, you know, the simple pixel art game that just has, you know, stepping along tiles would suddenly, like, crumple up the whole screen and zoom down this stairway. Then a big swirly effect would come up when the next level happened. That would have been fun. It didn't happen. So the shaders at play are actually much more subtle. So at startup, the window size has chosen whatever is... whatever will most fill the screen, you know, I can go into full screen mode and it's fine. Whatever will most fill the screen without going over with the tile size at an integer multiple. At such a low resolution, I'm always able to fill it pretty well. But if you want any arbitrary tile size or window size, you notice this is scaling nice and smooth and not getting any weird pixel artifacting or like stair-stepping as you'd normally see in games with pixel art. Once I get down to between like 1x and 2x, it's going to start looking worse. Noticeably? No, not really noticeably. Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see some like sparkling in the sparkly water that looks kind of funny. Then once I go down below 1x, it starts looking real bad, and that's unavoidable. But nobody's going to play this game at this size. I can kind of see what I'm doing almost. I can pretend. But anyway, yeah, so the way that works is the same. I went over this in my Foresight Fight devlog at some point. It uses, the term I adopted for this is area scaling. So while it defaults to an integer size, it doesn't have to stay at one. If I were to zoom in really close here, there's like a little bit of blurring between the black and the green right here, for example. But yeah, like it does nearest neighbor filtering for as much as it can, and then right at pixel transitions it does a linear blend. So that's the only shader magic going on here. Yeah, if I look really close at like the orange-yellow transition here as I resize, I mean, this is probably eaten by video encoding, so you probably can't even see here, but you know, try it with the game on your own computer if you want to see nice smooth pixel scaling like this. So yeah, that was just, I think, the only detail of shader magic worth mentioning. Yeah, and a couple of other ideas I had. I kind of did want to draw like a line from thing I have moused over to thing that it activates, and didn't get the time to design that. That would have been maybe a complicated thing to design. I only got as far as thinking about it and putting it on my list as, you know, thing I'd like to do, but then it didn't happen. Oh, and sorry, I keep rebooting this and restarting the music. I did want to do something for, this is a 100% clear file, but, you know, uncleared levels just draw their text in orange. I wanted to have like a little check mark here, and then a different check mark for secret clear on each of these levels, just to show that in a way other than by color. I guess you don't... Well, you can tell whether the secret is clear by whether it's unlocked or not. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so this just ended up being text with some colors on it, and that was all. Settings screen, I guess technically these are sort of graphics, but these are just, you know, primitives drawing unfilled and filled squares for that, etc. Nothing really to it. All right, yeah, and I think that's all the graphics in the game, pretty thoroughly covered. Yeah, so this basic palette got me through. Would have done something different in hindsight, but it was an interesting constraint and kind of fun to work with. Wish I'd had more time for animations, wish I'd had time for auto-tiling, wish I'd had time for polishing lots of stuff, but, you know, I know where my rough edges are, so now in future projects I can do different things and file them off. So, audio episode's going to be up next at some point, and I'll see you then to talk about that.